Happy Sabbath.
Today we're going to read Luke chapter 19, verses 9 through 10. Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost."
Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a privilege again for me to be with you here at Virginia Beach. It's the best time of the year, summer, to go to the beach. But I'm very happy to see you that you're also about to have 1 year in this place.
Amen.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
I remember the first time I came to visit you, you were still renting. But now you're here. Praise God for that. I bring you greetings from your President, Bill Miller, your Secretary, Vice President, Jorge Ramirez, and your Treasurer, Steve Wilson. We're all there to serve you, as usual. I always remind churches that there will not be conferences unless there are churches.
That's right.
Okay, so we're there to serve you. It's not the other way around. This morning, I was listening to the children's story, and I was very interested, you know. And there is one thing I want to make clear. Stewardship is not just about money. As a matter of fact, the use of your money depends on your level of the spirituality.
Amen.
Let me repeat that. The use of your money depends on the level of your spirituality and connection with God. So that's what we're going to speak about, and this is how the Bible focuses. In other words, stewardship is a life of commitment in all aspects of your life. Money just happens to be one. Money happens to be the result of that connection. Amen?
Amen.
I hope I didn't say something that made you uncomfortable, but that's the way it is. That's how it works. So let's speak about this morning. This morning's message. The title is The Little Giant. How can that be? Little giant. Well, we're going to talk about a very common story in the Bible. But before that, let me start by saying something very interesting to you. William Moncrief paid an unnecessary $23 million settlement to the IRS to save his business, which had been raided due to a disgruntled former employee of the IRS. In another case, during a 33-month investigation of Robert Gardner, the IRS seized his office property, lied to a grand jury, and tried to force his client to wear hidden microphones. Monsignor Lawrence Ballweg, the Roman Catholic priest, was unable to get a copy of his tax filing within a reasonable time so that he could respond to the IRS allegations that he owed thousands of dollars of taxes. The IRS couldn't even produce a copy of his own report. As a result of an IRS inability to straighten out Nancy Jacobs' husband's employer identification number, Mrs. Jacobs and her husband were subjected to liens, interest, and penalties for someone else's taxes for 17 years. Can you imagine that? Woo. On April 30, 1998, IRS auditors described instances of favoritism in tax cases toward wealthy individuals and powerful corporations. You know what Abraham Lincoln said one time? He said, most men can tolerate adversity, But if you want to test man's character, give him power. What will the reaction be if I say to you this morning, or if I have bring with me this morning an IRS employee with me?
Oh. Okay.
Come on, be honest.
Salvation.
What will it come to your mind immediately after you see someone with an IRS
Return.
label?
Let me see your tax return.
A return. Tax
The
return.
first thing you probably say, that's an atheist. A heartless man. Abuser of power. He's a liar. A man with no patience, no mercy. He probably has a big nice house somewhere. And he probably drives one of the most expensive cars. He can't allow you to do that, but he can. Well, you know, this reputation was not imposed just because of a chance, correct?
That's right.
They have brought upon themselves all of this reputation. These horror stories about the IRS have given them this label that when you see someone from the IRS, you go, wow. There is a very known saying that says there are two things in life: death and taxes, right?
Permanent.
Now,
Permanent.
historically, we find that most governments, no matter what kind, they have always relied upon taxes, correct?
That's right.
If you go to the Old Testament, we can find that even people of Israel charged taxes when they were in good terms, or they were paying taxes to somebody else when they were under bondage. This is the case for our story today. And I'm going to read from Luke chapter 19. Let's open our Bibles to Luke chapter 19, verse 1 and on. The Word of God says there, "Then Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. Now behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, who was a chief,
Tax collector.
what?
Tax collector.
Tax collector.
IRS.
And he was what?
He was rich.
He was rich. And he sought to see who Jesus was, but could not because of the crowd. For he was
Short.
short of stature. So he ran ahead and climbed up to the sycamore tree to see him, for he was going to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said to him, "Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must stay at your house." So he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. But when they saw it, they all complained, saying, "He has gone to be a guest with a man who is a sinner." Then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, "Lord, look, Lord, I give half of my goods to the poor, and if I have taken anything from anyone by a false accusation, I restore fourfold." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he also is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." Let's pray. Father, you have a message behind this story. It's speak to us. In Jesus' name, amen. Jericho was a very special city. If you didn't know, if you didn't remember, Jericho was the first city that the people of Israel took when they came into Canaan. It had a very special meaning in the life of the Israelites. So that city was the place where I would probably say in today's terms, where the General Conference was. Where all the priests lived. Where all the conference employees lived. It was a special city where all of, those people lived. But during Zacchaeus' time, during Jesus' period of time, the Romans had possession of all of those lands. And Jericho was the perfect place for trading, and where most merchants made their entrance with their products, and was a tactical place to have the IRS headquarters as well. So now you have an idea what kind of city was Jericho. It used to be, what it used to be, and now during the Roman Empire had changed from a religious city to a center of trading and a place where publicans lived together with priests. Zacchaeus was a Jew. He was not a Roman, he was a Jew. And because his position, now what was his position?
Tax collector.
He was a tax collector.
Or chief.
Who he collected taxes from? From his own people. So he was giving the job to collect taxes from his own people. Why was he given that job? When you go and apply for a job, what do they look in you? If you are qualified. So Zacchaeus must be someone who was qualified to do what?
Collecting taxes.
To collect taxes. Now, he was a publican. Publicans did not have a good reputation, just like IRS people today. They don't really have such a good reputation. Now, Zacchaeus was not just a publican or a one tax collector. He was what?
Rich.
He was the head
Or chief.
of all of them. He was the boss. So, to be a boss of the tax collector, he must have been a very good liar. Right? He must have been a very good at what he was doing. No wonder why he was so wealthy. Publicans did not have a good reputation because they were extortionists. Because they will not care whether you had or not have money tomorrow to eat. They want money now. They did not care if you lose your house because you owe taxes. They didn't care if you were a widow and have no place to go. They will still get your money. Those were publicans in those years. Not much different from today, I guess. Zacchaeus was the head of all of them. In other words, we can say probably that he was the best at it. And his reputation was so great that everybody hated that little man. Because on top of that, he was not even a big guy. He was a little man. He was short. But he had power. You see now why he was a little giant?
Yes.
He was little, But he has such a power in Jericho that everyone feared him, hated him, because they could do nothing to him because he had power. The Roman power behind him. And the worst part of all of this is that it would probably be somewhat okay if he was a Roman, but he was a Jew. What a shame. Have you ever thought or know how would you react if one morning you go back home? Or if you go back home right now, and the first thing you find on your mailbox is a letter from the IRS. How would you react to that? Mr. So-and-so, greetings. You're going to be audited for your tax return. I don't know how many of you have ever received such a letter. Don't raise your hand. But I'm sure it's something that you probably don't want. It will be the last thing you want to have in your life. It is incredible how we can react to some people, or how much fear can some people put in you. Wouldn't you be scared if you receive a letter from the IRS? The life of Zacchaeus was a life that had no worries because he had power. And he will do whatever he wants, and he will get money as much as he wanted from his own people. Yet, despite of all of that, his life was meaningless. Sometimes, we think that because things are going well, because we have power or control over things, we are fine. But that's not the case. Governments sometimes have power. People in power abuse what they have been given. I don't know how many of you remember Imelda Marcos. I'm sure my friends from the Philippines know very well that name. Imelda Marcos had a house
full of shoes.
just to store her shoes. While many children in the Philippines had no shoes. I can tell you many stories about my country too. My former president is in jail right now for corruption. His prime minister recorded videos of how much piles of money he will pay to politicians to change party lines, to sign contracts, and to do anything they want so they can govern in peace. When I came to Mexico, I have many stories. I tell you, I have to always have dollar bills in my pocket if I want to go in peace. If I want to drive without being stopped. Or if I want to cross places. Abuse of power. And we can probably say, yeah, politicians are bad. People with power are bad. And most of them probably are. The few that are not have been killed and they're heroes. But let me bring this a little closer to us. Because it's always somebody else who has a problem, but sometimes we don't see a problem within us. Let us talk about how we, as parents, may abuse of our power. Sometimes we tend to say this, you do this because I'm your father. You don't ask questions, you just obey. Right? Come on, kids, say yes. I'm telling you because I've done that. One of my kids one time told me, why? So you don't ask why, you just obey. I'm your father. I mean, it's not that we're right or wrong. Sometimes that is abuse of power. We go far beyond of our power. Now, if you're a macho man, you know what I refer when I say macho man? Those men that think that women are to serve them in every way. In our Latin culture, we grew up that way. I don't know about the rest of you, but you know, in our culture, you, as the man of the house, you come in and say, hey, lady, come on over and serve me and do this and do the other, take my shoes off. Well, I see it. Abuse of power. There are countries, even today in 2012, where women are an object. Abuse of power. There are children that abuse their parents. Have you seen those? When the children do whatever they want, and the parents say, oh, it's because I never had that, I don't want my children to suffer. So children do whatever they want. They can ask anything and they can have it all. Yeah, it's two ways, it's not just one way. We have abuse of power. And there is another place, my dear brothers and sisters, where we could also be just as bad as Zacchaeus. Abusing power. Because Zacchaeus had the power and he abused it. To the point that he had no mercy. And sometimes I see that in our church. When we become so proud of who we are and what we have, that we look at everybody else as if they were less than us. And we say, oh, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, you are not. I am better than you are. Are you with me? Sometimes when we have that attitude, sometimes when we say, hey, I know it all, I have 28 doctrines that you don't.